Welcome to the WRHS Podcast. We are with Mayor Snapp.
Tell us a story about the Beatles coming to Walnut Ridge.
That's a pretty cool story, actually. It was 1964. It was their first North American tour. There was a company out of Alton, Missouri, a man that owned an airline service called American Flyer Airlines, and he had gotten the charter contract for all their North American tour. Now, keep in mind, they were 16, 17, 18 years old at the oldest, and basically were so popular that everywhere they went, they couldn't even go out. They ate in hotel rooms, and because they'd be mobbed, they were sequestered like a jury would be. So they have their Dallas concert, and they're leaving their Dallas concert going to New York, but they have an extra day layover. And so they get up in the air, and the owner of the airlines, Reed Pigman, was with them, and he said, look, guys, y'all been sequestered. I own a dude ranch in Missouri. We can shoot guns, ride horses, swim, ride the go-karts, so on and so forth. Now, keep in mind, over in England, they couldn't have weapons. So just getting to shoot a gun was pretty cool. But go-karts, horses, man, they were all excited. And they said, well, how are we going to do this? And basically he told them there is a military airstrip in northeast Arkansas. Nobody will know we land. You won't have any problem. I'll have my private plane pick us up, and we'll go for a little trip. So by that time, they're in the air. They're coming over Walnut Ridge. It's 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning, third weekend of September. And Jack Allison, the former owner of the Polar Freeze that's passed away, he was out cleaning up his parking lot. Some guys went by in a convertible that used to go to school here, had gone to, I think they were in ASU, and he said, guys, look at this airplane. Something's wrong with it. It's got its landing lights on, and coming into the airport, it must be having mechanical trouble. So he sends them out there. They drive out to the airport. Now, back in that day, there wasn't even a gate across to keep you from getting onto the tarmac. So they pull up on the tarmac, and they've rolled the stairs up to the edge of the aircraft, and here come the Beatles getting off the plane. And they said one of them it was Ringo, had him a holster, and and if you look in history, Elvis had actually given him the holster, but they were doing the back up, walk out, step the paces like a Western movie and acting like they were shooting each other and falling around. They visited with them a little while, hauled some of the other band members around and back to the bus station, came back in, started spreading the story. In the meantime, the Beatles went up to Alton, Missouri. Word got out that they were here. The teenagers started going out to the airport. My sister was head of the Beatles For Forevermore fan club for the area. She's 5 years older than I am, and one of the guys that was in the convertible was the late Sheriff Gene Matthews. He was sheriff many years later, but he lived next door to us. So he got back into his house and called over to the house and let my dad answer the phone, got Carrie Mae, my sister, on the phone, told her the story. And the next day, my mother, we owned the motel, my family did, motel and restaurant in town, and my mother saw the pilot at the restaurant and was talking to him, and he said, I can't tell you when they're coming back, but I wouldn't have the kids in church Sunday if I was you. And that's about as good a hint. So you jump forward to, they spent the weekend in Alton, word was out, there were kids out at the airport. Sunday, there's probably 200 to 300 people out there, and trying to wait to get a chance to see them. They arrive in, everybody was in their Sunday finest. I mean, you'd think that was Easter or something, the way the girls were dressed up and everything. Real organized. Mayor gets up on the back of a pickup, tells people we're not going to have a problem. There's not going to be any trouble. We'll see if we can get them to give everybody autographs, what we can do. Let's see, Paul and George were in a Suburban and had driven back and were sitting here. And John and Ringo came in a small craft, and they departed, loaded the plane. They get onto the plane. Only people get the autograph. The mayor's daughters happened to have some albums. The mayor took them on board, got the Beatles to sign them autographs on their album. It seemed like they had a friend got an autograph. And, it wasn't a big event at the time. But now my family came and got me. Took me out there. I was 10. And I was literally, when George and Paul were getting out of the car, out of the Suburban, I had to scoot over to let them open the door. So when you're thinking about most of the people that saw the Beatles perform at the time, they may have been at the far end of a football stadium and seeing them like midgets, on the stage, little minute dots or something like that. So it was an up-close personal event that really stuck in people's mind. But the key factor of the event was years later when there was a group of 6 people the chamber had put together. My wife and I were 2 of the 6, and the discussion was how to promote the rock and roll highway. And I said, look, if y'all are going to try to, I wasn't mayor at the time, I said, if you're going to try to promote the highway, and you have Newport doing this, Pocahontas doing this, and other towns getting involved, what separates our town from any of the other towns along the Rock and Roll Highway? And Danny West was one of the 6 in the group. He said, well, I heard the Beatles were here in '64. And the early rock legends, Elvis and different ones, were the ones that were the influence on the Beatles forming their band. And when Danny said that, I looked over at my wife and I said, I was there. So Danny started spinning this idea to us, and we started making the connection to connect the birth of rock and roll through the area from where the mountain music came down to the rockabilly and turned into rockabilly with the Southern blues, and rockabilly became rock and roll influenced the Beatles were here, the rock and roll people played up and down Highway 67, so we put together a marketing option, and actually it's worked. With between the Beatles tribute, the 115-foot long Epiphone Casino guitar that's by the train station. The Epiphone Casino was the first truly hollow body guitar, and that's the guitar that made that early sound of the Beatles famous, because John, Paul, and George, all 3 preferred Epiphone Casinos at the initial start of the music. So we used the design of the Epiphone Casino as a tribute to the early rock and roll legends that influenced the Beatles to make the connection to try to get people coming in and out of town. It worked well enough that when we unveiled the tribute, the Wall Street Journal flew a news reporter in. So that's kind of the story of what was there and where we are with them now in relation to it. You can Google Beatles, the band Beatles in Arkansas, and Walnut Ridge is all over it. You can put it in. You'll pull up magazines and newspaper articles from China that have talked about Walnut Ridge, and so it's good publicity.
Yeah. What's the most important role of being mayor?
Trying to keep the city and all the departments running smooth and basically level the playing field. The American system of government will work if the people in office will let it work. But to do that, I have to ignore who you are, and we have to look at the merits of what you're doing and be fair with everybody. Government should represent everybody on an equal field, and that's the hardest part for me. I'd run once before many years ago and got beat. And then that was probably 30 years ago or 35 now. And I ran this time as we were had retired from one business and aging, and I told my wife, I said, I want to show people what the town can be. And so the mayor is a public servant. He's not an elected official, or a politician at least. I am elected, but I am a public servant. That doesn't mean I do what you want. That means that I learn the regulations and the rules of the city, try to apply them to where they benefit everybody, and have decisions that I make or recommendations that I make, trying to keep the city moving forward within the guidelines set by the city council.
Oh, what did you do before you were a mayor?
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of things. I grew up in a family that owned their own business, and my family bought the Ford dealership bought it out completely in 1932 in the Depression, and when they would travel to Ford meetings in Detroit, they started noticing the need for tourist courts, so they put in what was called the Alamo Court and Davy Crockett Motel in town. That was a Best Western Motel in later years, and I grew up running the motel and running the restaurant, selling cars for the car dealership, and learned the background of business until I went in for different businesses myself. And as far as that goes, I've done everything from tooled leather and lived in a 64 Ford panel van and carried turquoise and silver jewelry up and down the Gulf Coast into the Key West and back selling jewelry. But probably the most creative things that I've done were involved in later years when we expanded out of the motel business and started getting into the waterfowl hunting in a large way. We, at one point in northeast Arkansas, we ran as many as 60 duck hunters a day. Literally, at one time, I'd used a Cessna 172 to scout, trying to keep up with where the birds were. And we later started tuning that down to where we opened up the lodge and started filming outdoor TV in the early years when the Sportsman's Channel was out. It gave me the opportunity to meet people literally from all over the world. We had one man that flew in from Johannesburg, South Africa, and he would fly up to Vermont and get with a group, and they would bring a chartered jet in to duck hunt in Walnut Ridge. The Allegiance Corporation building that's out at the industrial park. Clayton Keister, I'm going to say it's been over 30 years ago now. Clayton flew in and stayed in the motel we owned, coming to duck hunt. He was a fighter pilot in the military at one time, flew planes, so on and so forth. And he flew in to go on a duck hunt. And he liked it so much in the area that probably 5 to 8, it may have been 10 years ago, he opened a business, a distribution business at the airport. And then about 5 years ago, he actually built a new, probably $500,000 to $1 million facility at the airport and distributes. He owns 7 to 9 locations in multiple countries and all. And so just the fact that the waterfowl focus and the quality of hunting, fishing outdoors that we have in the area brings that many people to the area, and it opens up a lot of diversification. So that was probably one of the most interesting opportunities we had in business. We got out of that. My wife and I retired 15, 18 years ago from that, and that was when we started working into the tourism. We had it'd be about 50 years now ago, I built the first set of mini storage that I owned, self-storage facilities. And over the years, we've been building up more and more self-storage facilities. And I actually was president of the Arkansas Self-Storage Association Board of Directors for probably 6 years or more. And we sold out in 2021 to allow me more time to focus on city endeavors. But we also owned commercial buildings and apartments, and some of the commercial buildings that were renovated downtown my wife and I started buying those and renovating them and trying to get people to rent them under a program she started that was called Invest in Your Dreams. And it was based on a policy that Lizzie Ray had years ago, and this was in the late 1800s, early 1900s, where she would give people a piece of farmland, or she would sell them a cow, but they couldn't butcher it, and then when they bred it, they had to share some of the income off the offspring, things like that. So we started a program to where if you wanted to put a business in downtown in one of these buildings that were upgrading, we would bring it up to minimum standards and get it ready to go. Some of those on Abbey Road were several of them. And then you would come in and maybe you would install the HVAC, the air conditioned heated it, or you would have it wired specifically for what you needed, finish out the inside, and we would give you discounted or free rent for a period of time to where you could regain your investment, but also you had invested in your dreams, and because you had money in the game, you were going to work a little harder because this was yours and you were part of building it, and that's what got the revitalization of Walnut Ridge jump-started when we unveiled the Beatles tribute. This all came about because we needed a place to put the Beatles tribute, and where it sits on Abbey Road were 2 of 7 buildings we initially bought that we weren't able to renovate. So the city took them down to a certain point, and we donated that property to the organization downtown Walnut Ridge.
Did you ever commit any crimes?
What?
Did you ever commit any crimes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, how many people have not at some level?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. And that brings up a good mayor topic. Have you ever broken the speed limit?
Yeah.
So everybody's committed crimes of different types. But that also goes to show it's not you're a bad citizen. Maybe you didn't know. Maybe you became callous to the rules. And so where it's been 25, 30 mile an hour speed limit or one way for so long, you forget, you just drive faster. Getting in a boat with no life jacket. You know, there's all sorts of levels of crime, but I doubt many people have ever gone through life without committing any crimes.
Yeah.
Now, have I ever been convicted of anything? No. And, you know, that's just basic minor crimes, I would say.
On the topic of the Beatles, when did the Beatles at the Ridge start?
Beatles at the Ridge started, we unveiled the tribute, I believe it was 2010 or 2011. And it wasn't planned to be a festival, but we unveiled it on the 3rd Sunday of September that year, which was the same day they would have taken off at the airport in proportion. And it had started raining, and we had that was the day that the Wall Street Journal reporter had flown in. And we had probably 3,000, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people gathered at the Regents Bank parking lot. They had umbrellas, they had parkas, trash bags on. We were trying to keep the water off the stage, and the Louise Harrison, who's George Harrison's sister, had brought her tribute band in to perform for the unveiling. Now, all they had ever seen was a 2-foot tall, 5-foot wide piece of a scale model, so to speak, of the tribute. But they brought it in for the unveiling, and we had a couple of other bands. We had to rush this up because a major storm was coming in. But the late Sonny Burgess, he played at Sun Studios, used to live at Newport. They called him, I believe he called him the wildest rocker at Sun Studios because of his antics. And Sonny was quite a bit older than I was, but he had gone to accept an award somewhere and couldn't perform for one of the opening groups that day. But when he showed up and it's raining, and we're just trying to get through to get to unveil before the storm hits. And I saw him over there, and I walked up to him, and he said, Snapp, I'm going to tell you. He said, you're on to something. He said, driving back, he said, I felt so sorry for y'all. He said, if you'd asked me to bet, I bet you wouldn't have had 50 people here, and they'd all been kin to you and the other committee members. He said, if you've got this many people in this type weather, you need to make this a festival. So it was that over the top successful considering the conditions, and based on his advice, we got with the downtown Walnut Ridge group who used to do an Iron Mountain Festival, and we merged it in, and the first one was Iron Mountain Beatles at the Ridge Festival, and after that we phased the general festival out. So it's been going on since 10, 11 at the latest.
Do you think you'll ever run for governor?
No.
No.
We had, listen, I'm content. I can do a lot of good here. Last year I ran, I'm finishing my first year of my third term, which they're 4-year terms, so I've got 3 more. And when I ran the last time, I had people say the county judge seat was open. Their house seat was coming up, and why don't you run for this? Why don't you run for that? I told you, I'm a public servant. I may be blunt with my reasoning and straightforward with you, but I'm a public servant. I'm not a politician that's after a career. I'm trying to help the community and give back to the city and the county that gave my forefathers the start to get me where I am. So I'm not out to climb the ladder anywhere. I'm perfectly content. I love Walnut Ridge and Lawrence County, and my health's holding up, and I'll just keep going until some point somebody steps up that really shows they have the interest, or the people vote me out, whichever one they want to do. I mean, I'm here to help.
Did you ever go to college?
I did. As I told y'all, I grew up in a family business, and we actually went on that board of directors about 10, so I'd been exposed to a tremendous amount of business dealings all through my life. When I was 17 and in high school here, I graduated at 17 and was soon to get married shortly after that. And so my plans to enter Arkansas State University for a degree were immediately changed, because I was carrying a 40-hour full work week and had a family on their way. And so I skipped a lot of the basics and would take advanced courses in business law, accounting, economics, things like that at ASU. And I took a couple of courses out at what was Southern Baptist College at the time. I don't have a degree, but I've got several college hours and a whole lot of, I guess you would say, homeschooling from business parents and a mother that taught economics and government here at the Walnut Ridge school system.
Do you know how to hunt and fish?
Do I know how to hunt and fish?
Do you like to?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't anymore, but yeah, I grew up hunting and fishing. I wasn't a big organized sports person. Now, I say that, I did play third base for the Cardinals for 3 years, and I was good at it, but then they wouldn't let me keep in Little League, so that didn't happen. It wasn't the St. Louis Cardinals, it was the Walnut Ridge Cardinal intramural sports team. And I enjoyed baseball, I enjoyed basketball, but I like the outdoors. And my family grew up hunting and fishing, and I grew up hunting and fishing, and I scuba dive, and I mean just about anything related to the outdoors short of snow skiing was always my pleasure. You could get out and be with nature. You could see things that other people can only see in the books. And this part of Arkansas, when you think about 7 rivers within 35-mile radius of the area, the state parks that we have, the wildlife management areas we have, how could you really not like to hunt and fish? Lake Charles State Park was named after my uncle, whom I was named after, He was kind of like a grandfather to me, and I was one of their first lifeguards over there that was paid, lived in a tent that summer, and through the day, I'd do the lifeguard work, and at night, I'd run trot lines. You know, but I love the outdoors, and I love to hunt fish. I just don't do it anymore because of time involved with dedicated to the city.
What is it like being the mayor?
It's extremely stressful at times, but it's real rewarding. I probably hear more compliments now on how the city's doing and being able to work with all the people and the improvements that we've done. You think about it, for the 9 years that I've been in, we have done an asphalt overlay project on the road. Prior to me taking office, there had been one project done through a state aid street grant in 8 years. So the streets were in bad shape. So being able to come in and work the finances and get the security of the city built up to where you could withstand tough times like when COVID hit. We could have taken a full economic downturn, and the city could have, and maintained operation for 1 full year without being in crisis because we'd built up a reserve. So from a mayor's standpoint, from mine, and I'm giving back to the people and trying to give the future to where y'all's kids can have a life here, a quality life, it's real rewarding. And you know, it's got its ups and downs, but now when that phone goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's the police chief telling you that, Mayor, we've got a problem. I've never seen such a disaster in Walnut Ridge in my life, and he's been a police officer for 15 or 18 years, when that windstorm hit a few years ago. And you're trying to make rash decisions, spur of the moment, to be able to protect everybody, get the lanes back open for emergency vehicles. It's a stressful job, but I like it. I like it, and it's extremely rewarding to be able to give back to the community.
What's your favorite part about Walnut Ridge?
Probably the location of where it is. You know, shopping local is important, and that's the backbone of what keeps the city going financially. But when you think about it, hour and 15 minutes you can be in Memphis. 25 minutes you can be in Jonesboro and now Paragould, which have wide variety of offerings. Hour and a half you can be in Little Rock. But we still have the general safety and security of a small rural town. I mean, we have an extremely good quality of life here in Walnut Ridge when you think about what all goes on in the cities. Do we have petty crime? Yes. We have all sorts of problems. But by choosing to live here, you can get your kids an outstanding education, K through 12 or even at the university, and it's in a safe manner, and you're within reach, a day's reach of anything you could possibly want to do within reason. So the location near the rivers, the lakes, the state parks is probably the best part of it, in my opinion. Out of all the travels I did over the years in different business relations and going places, it's always good to come back home.
What skill does it take to become a mayor?
Winning an election. Honestly, that's one of the problems. Any political election is a popularity contest. Who do you think's going to be the best at this? But people tend to vote for who they like, or they vote for a change in direction. And the background, other than living here for so long and being 18 years old, you can file to run for mayor. Do you have any ability? It doesn't matter. Not if you win the election. Is it the best thing for the city? That's yet to be seen till your term's over. That's my legacy will be the years that I leave, and will they say, well, we should have got rid of him years ago, or he did good. But to be a mayor or to serve on the city council, all you have to be is 18, file for office, and get elected.
Do you know what that factory is over on Clear Springs Road?
On Clear Springs Road.
They're building a factory over there. I think it's either Midway.
Midway Road.
Yeah, Midway.
Yeah, that's Juice Tech.
Juice Tech.
That is a crypto mining operation.
Oh.
Bitcoin?
Okay.
Now, I don't know that they're doing Bitcoin, but it's a crypto mining operation. We have one out at the industrial park now, a smaller one. That particular mining operation will run 5,900 mines. A mine is a computer. I've kind of learned all this since they've started coming to town. A mine is a computer stack. And they'll run 5,950 miners inside the two buildings, and they'll be searching the algorithm on electricity to find the Bitcoin or the non-fungible token, whatever. It's quite an investment. They paid, they probably have a $500,000 in the land, plus they've had to build the land up. They're building the building. They're going to have, I want to say they said $600,000 invested in computers. And they're anticipating, when this originally started and we negotiated with them a couple of years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, they were talking about 15 to 18 jobs in the $85,000 to up to $100,000 a year annual pay category. And of course, crypto mines are getting a lot of negative publicity over noise, but I feel real comfortable with this particular location because the Planning Commission and the City Council, the Planning Commission and the City Council work closely to put a conditional use permit on them that required them to build an pre-engineered sound wall around the facility to absorb the sound. And the latest reports we got on that, and it'll be added into their building permit probably as early as next week, were that the sound rating at the nearest property line with all the computers going is anticipated to be at 39 decibel. Now, to give you, of course, this is a mechanical noise and it's kind of a hum, but to give you an idea, the central unit outside of your house on your air conditioner probably runs about 50 decibel when it's running.
Wow.
So I believe we've got the noise part, those concerns handled. The other benefits would be to the city. Now, the city of Walnut Ridge does not assess property taxes except for one mill, but we can get into that later, which is unusually low. But we should get a sales tax off their electrical use. And sales tax is the biggest basis of where operating money comes for the city. That's how we keep the park up. That's how we did the improvements to the swimming pool, built the filter system. That's how we do the roads, the drainage, buy the fire trucks and things, police cars. And they're anticipating an average electric bill in the range of $500,000 a month.
Golly.
So we'll get sales tax off that, or we're supposed to be able to if state legislature doesn't change anything. So it'll be a big boost there to the city. If that comes in, 2% on $500,000, what's that, $25,000? So that's going to give us the benefit to make more improvements into the city to help the quality of life, to keep the park up, keep people who want to come to town, keep that safe, and be able to continue to grow the city at a good pace that's going to offer the benefits, because it takes money to operate. But that's what that is. I would anticipate the possibility of them being open by possibly midsummer next year, something like that.
What's the best part of being a mayor?
Getting to visit with the people and meet all the different people that come in. And by doing that, I have an opportunity to offer support and direction to people that it'll help them out a lot in their personal lives or their business. The crypto mine is a good point. When businesses start coming in, they need to know how to navigate the rules and regulations, what's going to be best, and we try to find that balance that's quality of life for citizens, but will keep the city going. I chaired the planning commission for 4 years before I was mayor when the zoning codes were and planning development were drafted, and so it helps me reach through to help the people in the placement of businesses, things of that nature. So it's a good job. It's a good job, just stressful, and it's 7 days a week. And if you're on vacation and your phone rings, you better answer it.
What's the craziest thing you've seen as mayor?
What is the greatest thing that
Craziest
thing that I've seen? Well, I'll tell you one really crazy thing that's been really fighting to keep from answering. Look at that text on my phone. So my wife asked me this week. She said, "So what's your week look like? Getting close to Christmas, we might do a little shopping." I said, "Well, hon," I said, "Tuesday afternoon looks pretty well open, and Wednesday I don't have anything." And that's really pressing. And I said, "You want to do something?" She said, "Well, let's see." Well, about 3 o'clock Tuesday afternoon, I get a phone call. And the road going from Highway 67 at Williams Store, going to the university and the airport, guy calls me and he said, "Mayor, there's a dip formed in that road out there." And he said, "I think you're getting a washout under it." I said, "Well, I'll go out and look at it." So I took off out there. Sure enough, the concrete road right past the first concrete tile is dropped down probably that far in the middle, and it's literally sitting like this. And there's a little crack off the side of the shoulder. So I got a tape out of my truck and I started running it down through there, inch wide tape. I stuck it 18 feet down in that hole.
Wow.
This was Tuesday afternoon, no clue any of this was going on. I started making phone calls. Tuesday night, we had men out there after dark closing that one lane of traffic so the school buses and all wouldn't go down that lane. Spent the next day trying to figure out solutions, talking to engineers with the highway department and an engineer out of Pocahontas that we hire through the city for work, as well as HydroGuard, which is a foundation repair and lift concrete group out of Black Rock. And we came up with a plan called an emergency locate-in. Come to find out that sinkhole under that old concrete slab, now that was built by the military in World War II, and that slab's about 9 inches thick. And it's cracked and holding itself, and luckily there was an edge on the tile over here or it would have dropped in and swallowed the car. Estimates are that thing's 18 foot across, probably 12 to 15 foot wide, and at the deepest point, 5 or 6 foot deep.
God.
And so at 1 o'clock today, we figured out the Hedger Brothers is bringing in called pourable mix. And it's a mixture of sand, potash, and mortar that's kind of like a heavy gravy. And we've got the leak stopped up in the culvert, and we'll pour that in and we'll fill that entire hole from the sides. Open one lane of traffic back up by dark's the plans, and then that'll set for 5 to 7 days and it'll turn into a hard clay base. Then we'll have to come in and jack that road up because it's a historic road. It's on the historic registry. So we'll have to jack that back up. You've seen the commercials where they raise a sidewalk. We're going to try to do that with a 10-foot wide, 18-foot long, 9-inch thick piece of concrete and raise that up. So, I mean, that's how crazy certain things can get on the spur of the moment when you're in this office.
Here, can we cut it?
Yeah, we can cut it. Have you ever flew an airplane before?
Yes, I actually have a pilot's license. I'm not current, and it's been years, but back in the when y'all heard of Pac-Man, back in the days when Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man were first coming out, we owned a video game room and a game route where we hauled games around and put in for other places. And as that went through the process, I'd gotten involved using an airplane to fly scouting ducks. But on the way, when video games started coming out of the quality for home like Nintendo, the commercial video game industry was on its way out. And I read in a Entrepreneur magazine, I read an article on a company in North Carolina that was starting a stand-up machine that you could put in a grocery store, and people would be able to go in and put a quarter in and type in a code name and get a message from anywhere in the world. And they had a home model that you'd be able to tie into your TV. You'd be able to play games and send messages off your TV. So I got a hold of these people. It's called Video Communications. And I got a hold of them and booked a flight out. It was Richmond, Virginia is where it was, come to think of it. And flew out to Richmond and met with them. And it was strictly a prototype. And they had the process and the cabinet built. And I got an 8-state territory to hook up distributors for this new system that was coming out. And I used that 172 to fly into these different towns and carry a flip chart, the old-time flip charts, to make the presentation to the people. And so I had quite a few hours, and I enjoyed flying. Of course, if you're going to fly, you better not have to get there exactly when you want if you're going to be a private pilot, because weather sets you down, and you can't always get back when you want to. One time through this process, I had to leave a plane in Indianapolis, Indiana, that 172 Cessna, for almost 10 days because of bad weather. So I rented a car and drove home and had to drive back up, get the plane fly back. So, but I enjoyed flying, had a lot of hours. We have a beautiful airport out here. It's an unforeseen gift if people don't fly that we're actually trying to make more and more out of right now. But
what's your favorite food?
Favorite food? Really, I am not a picky eater. You can tell that by the size. But if I had to pick two things that I just about as soon eat, lunch or supper, either one, it'd be a hot dog and pizza. Now, if you're talking about breakfast, hard to beat cinnamon toast and oatmeal. So I'm a pretty simple person when it comes down to it. I'm not a big extravagant food eater, and I mean, steak's good once in a while, but reality, it's hard to beat a hot dog.
Indeed it is.
How much does your job pay?
The city of Walnut Ridge, as mayor right now, pays about $50,000 annually. And because of my age, I don't get health care insurance. Through the health care program that we use for all the city employees, when an elected official reaches the age for Medicare, then you're automatically out. You have to go on to the government insurance. So, and that's not a bad salary for around here. But then again, it has a lot to do with the satisfaction you get from seeing the town grow and help people.
Do you have any kids?
Any
kids?
Oh yeah, my daughter eldest daughter's 51. Might be 50 or 51, and I have a 30 or 31-year-old grandchild with her, and a 16 through her, another 19-year-old granddaughter, and then we have a 40-something-year-old daughter, and about 42, I'd say, and then another son that's in late 30s and a younger son that's in mid 30s, and grandkids that run from 30-something years old down to almost 15.
Oh, it's my turn?
Yep.
Okay. Still thinking.
What's your favorite thing about East?
What now?
What's your favorite thing about East?
Well, I think it challenges y'all, the young members of East, to be more and be able to do more, and exposes you to more than what it's done before. Several years ago, I was at school here for something, and Jerry Haynes was over East, and it was the first time I was exposed to East. And they had the 3D printers going, different things like this, and the people, all the students were really involved. And I can assure you, not all of us come from the same mold. Just like I wasn't a big organized sports person. I was more into outdoor sports and had different activities than some. East I feel like, will push the members and the students that take part in East to maximize their talents and expose them to other opportunities. Who would have ever thought when I ran for mayor that 12 years ago, 11, someday a group of kids from the high school would design the one-way streets off of Main going north and south at what used to be Second. Now, that's not just a project for the school. If we had not got that done, the state was pushing us to put a stoplight back in at that intersection, a full functioning traffic control signal. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars the city would have had to been out if we didn't get the one-ways work to take the pressure off. Plus, can you imagine another full functioning stoplight on Main Street and people are trying to get to school with trains and all? I mean, and just think about the safety. Of course, we've got the new fire station we're about to have an open house on, hopefully in January. But it's still the East, and the East students worked the presentation up to be able to convince the city council, help me convince the city council to authorize me to make those moves. So that's pretty big. And just the work recently painting the basketball court. That's something that the kids use a lot of at the park. The students have helped do it. The city brought the money in. But it also exposes the youth to being able to work with the city a little more. And that's something that we need to get figured out. And I don't know the process, but just like the instructor this morning talking about more open communications, and I was encouraging her to get my cell phone to reach out to me with ideas. Y'all as students need to learn the process, I feel like, of how to go through the steps to find out, I've got an idea. What hurdles are going to be in my way? And reach out with the idea, because the people who have the vision for an idea and a desire to see this materialize, that's the person that should head up the efforts to get that going. So East, to me, is an opportunity for students to explore beyond just the classroom.
Okay. Well, I think this time's over. All right. Well,
I've enjoyed it. Appreciate it. I hope it was what y'all wanted.
All right.